Welcome to a night of rain, whispers, and uneasy dreams. Tonight, we enter the Hotel of Sleep, where not every guest wakes again. The rain fell in soft sheets against the tall windows of the inn. Lightning flickered across the sky, illuminating the sign that read the Hotel of Sleep. A faint creak echoed as the wooden door opened. Inside, the air smelled of old books and lavender oil. Candles flickered in brass holders, their light trembling with each roll of thunder. A young traveler named Emma stepped inside, her coat soaked, her hair clinging to her face. The old woman at the counter smiled with slow, deliberate grace. "Welcome, dear," she said softly. "You must be tired. The storm will not end tonight." Emma nodded and rubbed her chilled hands together. "I need a room for the night," she said. The woman slid a heavy brass key across the counter. "Room 9. Up the stairs, third door on the right. Sleep well." Her voice trembled at the last words, as if they carried weight beyond politeness. Emma climbed the staircase. Each step groaned under her boots. The hall smelled faintly of damp wood and something sweet, like flowers long since dead. Rain drummed against the roof. A flash of lightning revealed faded portraits on the walls, faces painted with glassy eyes that seemed to follow her. She found room 9 and turned the key. The lock clicked with a slow, reluctant sound. Inside was a small bed covered in crisp white sheets. A single candle burned on the table beside it. The flame bent and straightened again as if it were breathing. Emma set her bag down and removed her wet coat. The sound of the storm outside deepened, like a heartbeat through the walls. She felt the room shift slightly, as though the floor itself exhaled. Her reflection in the mirror seemed to shimmer. For a moment, it looked as if someone else was standing behind her. She spun around. The room was empty. Only the rain and the steady tick of the wall clock. Emma exhaled and tried to laugh at herself. "Just tired," she whispered. She lay on the bed. The pillow felt soft, almost too soft, as if it were sinking beneath her head. The rain outside grew louder, more urgent. The candlelight danced, casting strange shadows across the ceiling. One of them seemed to move even when the flame stood still. Emma closed her eyes and tried to rest. But something pressed lightly against her ankle. Not fabric, not the blanket, something cold and damp. Her eyes opened. The room was darker now. The candle had gone out. Only the blue-white light of the storm remained, flashing in through the window. And there, at the foot of the bed, a shape stood, tall, still, dripping with rainwater though the door was locked tight. Its face was hidden by the shadows, but its breathing was slow and heavy. Emma tried to move, but her body felt heavy, like the mattress had swallowed her limbs. The sound of the clock stopped. Even the rain outside paused for a heartbeat. Then came a whisper, soft and wet, near her ear. "You have come back at last." Her chest tightened. What do you mean?" she managed to say. The shape tilted its head. Water fell from its fingers, darkening the floorboards. "This is your room," it said, "and you promised never to wake." Emma's pulse thundered in her ears. The candle suddenly flared to life, though no one had touched it, and in the mirror beside the bed, she saw herself lying there, eyes closed, pale, unmoving. The figure smiled, and the rain outside began to fall harder, drowning out her scream. The floorboards groaned again, but this time it was not the storm that shook the house. The wind howled against the shutters, rattling them like a warning. The candlelight wavered as if afraid. Emma's throat ached with the weight of her own breath. Her eyes darted to the mirror again, to the image that refused to move. The reflection lay perfectly still while her real body trembled. She reached out a shaking hand toward the glass. The surface rippled like water. Her fingertips met something cold and slick, as if touching a pond at night. Then the reflection's eyes opened. They were not her eyes anymore. They were darker, almost black, and filled with something hollow and endless. Emma jerked back, heart pounding. The room pulsed around her like it was alive. The wallpaper moved in slow waves. The air thickened with the smell of wet earth. The figure at the foot of the bed stepped forward. Its footsteps left dark prints that steamed faintly on the wooden floor. "Do you remember?" it said softly, "the promise beneath the rain?" Emma shook her head, though part of her mind whispered that she did. Something buried deep inside her stirred, a memory she had spent years trying to erase. She stumbled to the window. The latch was swollen and heavy from the moisture, refusing to open. Outside, the storm churned like a living creature. Flashes of lightning revealed a courtyard filled with old gravestones, half buried in moss. One of them glistened freshly wet, as if the earth had only recently been disturbed. Her breath fogged the glass. In that mist, she saw the faint outline of her name carved into one of those stones. The letters were clear and sharp. She blinked hard. When she looked again, it was gone. Only the reflection of her terrified face remained. She turned back to the figure. It had drawn closer now, the dripping form no more than a few steps away. The smell of rain and soil filled the room completely. It was suffocating. Its voice came again, no louder than before, yet it seemed to echo through her bones. "You left," it said. "You promised to sleep until the storm passed. But you left me here alone." Emma's hands trembled at her sides. "I do not know you," she whispered, though her heart told another story. The figure tilted its head again, the sound of water dripping from its chin. "Yes, you do," it said. "You came here every year. You begged for rest. You said you were so tired of the noise. The world would not let you dream. You wanted a place where time would sleep with you." The candle flared again, casting the room in gold and blood. The portrait on the far wall seemed to change. The woman in the frame was not a stranger anymore. It was Emma, younger, smiling faintly beside a man whose face was hidden in shadow. Her stomach turned. The air grew heavy, pressing down like deep water. The ticking clock had returned, but the sound was slower now, distorted. Every tick stretched into an echo that faded only after the next one began. Her pulse matched it until she could not tell where her heartbeat ended and the clock began. She tried to speak, but her voice came out thin and cracked. "What are you?" The figure took another step forward. "I am the keeper of your rest," it said. "I guard the ones who come here to forget." The storm outside broke into thunder again. The walls trembled, flakes of old paint drifting down like snow. Emma stumbled back toward the door. She reached for the handle, but her fingers passed right through it. It was not solid anymore. The door seemed painted on, its edges dissolving into darkness. "Let me out!" she cried. Her voice was swallowed by the sound of the rain. The figure's tone grew almost tender. "There is no outside. You dreamed that part long ago." Emma pressed her back against the wall, shaking her head violently. "No. I walked in. I spoke to someone at the counter." The figure nodded slowly. "The old woman." "Yes. She welcomes everyone who forgets their last heartbeat." Emma's breath caught. "My last heartbeat." The figure extended its hand. "Come," it said gently. "You are safe here. The storm will never reach you." Lightning struck again, lighting up the entire room. For an instant, she saw what the figure truly was. Its face was her own, but older, its eyes hollowed by years of sleepless longing. Its mouth curved in a sorrowful smile. She screamed, but no sound came out. Only the thunder answered. The reflection in the mirror began to move again. The other Emma sat up from the bed with calm, slow precision. Her eyes glowed faintly like embers beneath water. She stood, mirroring every terrified motion of the living Emma across the room. And then, the reflection stepped out of the mirror. Glass cracked like ice. Shards floated in the air for a heartbeat before falling silently to the floor. The two Emmas faced each other, one breathing, one still dripping with storm water. The figure spoke again, this time with Emma's own voice. "You were meant to stay asleep. You broke the promise." "I never made one," Emma gasped. The other Emma smiled faintly. "Yes, you did. On the night you died here." The storm roared as if the sky itself had torn open. The walls shook. The candle went out again, plunging everything into blue shadows. Emma backed toward the corner, clutching her head, fragments of memory striking like lightning through her mind. A car on a winding road, rain so thick it blinded her. The sound of screeching tires, the flash of headlights, then silence. Cold. The old inn. The kind woman offering her a key. Room 9. Her knees gave out. She fell to the floor, gasping for breath that no longer filled her lungs. The ghost, her reflection, knelt beside her. "Sleep," it whispered. "You are home now." Emma's eyes fluttered. Her heartbeat slowed until it matched the rhythm of the rain. The sound of the storm softened into a lullaby. The figure placed a hand gently on her chest. The touch was not cold anymore. It was calm. Final. The clock on the wall ticked once more and then stopped. The candle reignited by itself, casting light on the empty room. The bed was neatly made. The air smelled again of lavender and damp wood. Only one dark footprint remained near the door. Downstairs, the old woman looked up from her ledger as the storm eased. She wrote a name in careful ink. Emma Carter, Room 9, Eternal Rest. Then she closed the book and whispered, "Sleep well, dear." The bell above the front door rang softly. A man stepped in, drenched from the rain, shivering. "Do you have a room for the night?" he asked. The woman smiled with slow, deliberate grace. "Of course," she said. "The storm will not end tonight." And behind her, the candle flames trembled, as if something unseen had just stirred awake upstairs in Room 9. The man wiped the water from his brow and looked around the dim lobby. The place felt older than it appeared at first glance. The wallpaper curled at the edges, revealing layers of faded paper beneath. The air carried a faint, heavy scent of lavender and smoke. Outside, the wind howled like something alive. The woman behind the counter, her silver hair pinned neatly, her smile too still, extended the brass key. "Room 9, she said softly. "Up the stairs, third door on the right." Her tone held a rhythm, a strange familiarity, as if she had said those exact words 1,000 times before. The man hesitated, glancing toward the staircase that creaked even without a foot upon it. "Is it the only room available?" he asked. The woman nodded once, slow and deliberate. "It is always waiting for someone." He took the key, its surface oddly warm against his cold palm. His name was Daniel. He had been driving for hours, chasing distance from a memory he refused to face. His mind buzzed with fatigue, and the storm outside showed no sign of easing. He thought only of dry clothes and a quiet place to rest. The steps groaned as he climbed. His boots left small puddles behind him, the rainwater dripping rhythmically onto the rug. The hallway stretched longer than it looked from below. The flickering light bulbs hummed in the ceiling, though he could swear he saw candlelight dancing in the corner of his vision. He passed a series of portraits. Each face looked subtly wrong. Eyes too focused, smiles frozen in the exact same curve. One of them, a woman in a white dress, seemed to watch him move, her pupils following even when he turned away. He stopped before Room 9. The brass number on the door gleamed, untouched by age or dust. The key slid into the lock with a reluctant sigh. The door opened soundlessly. Inside was simple comfort, soft lighting, clean sheets, a single candle burning near the window. The scent of lavender was stronger here, almost intoxicating. Daniel placed his bag on the chair and rubbed the back of his neck. He could still feel the vibration of thunder through the walls. He sat on the bed. The mattress dipped softly, almost too easily. The pillow smelled faintly of rain and something older, like pages from a forgotten book. As he leaned back, a faint whisper brushed against his ear. "Sleep well." He turned sharply. No one was there, only the candlelight trembling beside him. He exhaled, convincing himself it was just the storm playing tricks. He lay down and closed his eyes. Rain pattered against the glass like fingers tapping in rhythm. The sound was oddly soothing. He felt himself drifting toward sleep, though something deep inside told him not to. Something about the air felt watched. The clock on the wall ticked. Tick, 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 then stopped. Daniel's eyes opened. The candle had gone out, but the room was not entirely dark. A pale glow seeped from the window, too white to be moonlight. He pushed himself up slowly, blinking away the haze of half-sleep. A woman stood by the window. Her back faced him. Her hair was long and dripping wet, strands sticking to her white gown. Water pooled around her bare feet. Daniel's chest tightened. "Excuse me," he began, but his voice cracked. The woman turned her head, just slightly, enough for him to see the edge of her face. Her lips curved faintly, not into a smile but something close to recognition. "You came back," she whispered. He froze. "I think you have the wrong room," he said, his throat dry. She shook her head slowly. Her hair clung to her cheeks. "This room belongs to all who remember the storm," she said. Daniel rose to his feet. Every muscle in his body tensed. "I do not understand what you mean." The woman turned fully now, and his breath caught. Her eyes were soft but hollow, dark as deep water. Her face pale, her gown stained faintly around the hem as if she had walked through mud. And behind her, through the rain-streaked window, he saw gravestones glimmering faintly in the courtyard below. "Who are you?" he whispered. She took a step forward, her bare feet silent on the floorboards. "I am what you left behind," she said. "I waited while you tried to forget." Daniel stumbled back until his knees hit the bed. "I never met you before," he said, his voice shaking. She smiled sadly. "You say that every time." Thunder rolled through the walls. The floor trembled. The candle flickered back to life by itself, casting light on her wet form. Her skin shimmered faintly like glass beneath the flame. The air thickened again with the scent of lavender and rain. Daniel's mind raced. He remembered the curve of the road, the blinding lights, the flash of another car. He remembered screaming. Then nothing. His pulse roared in his ears. He looked again at the woman. "Where am I?" he whispered. Her expression softened, almost kind. "You are between the storm and the morning," she said, "where those who drift come to rest." He shook his head violently. "No, I am alive. I was driving here tonight. I found this inn." She stepped closer. "There is no road to this place anymore," she said quietly. Her fingers reached out, and he felt her touch, cold, weightless, like fog-across skin. He pulled back, trembling. Lightning flared outside, flooding the room in white light. For one brief moment, he saw something behind her. A figure lying on the bed. Himself. Still. Eyes closed. The candlelight dimmed. The ticking clock started again. Slow, deep, steady as a heartbeat. She leaned closer, whispering near his ear. "It is time to sleep, Daniel. The storm is over." "No," he gasped. "I will not stay." The walls shuddered as thunder cracked overhead. He rushed to the door, grabbing the handle. But it was gone. Only smooth wood remained. No hinges. No escape. The woman's eyes glowed faintly now, filled with calm sorrow. "You never learn," she said. Then, with a soft sigh, she touched his forehead. Daniel's body stiffened. The air left his lungs in one long exhale. He felt the bed beneath him again. The candlelight dimmed to gold, and the world fell silent except for the rain. The old woman, downstairs, looked up from her ledger. She felt the tremor run through the floor, the subtle shift in the storm's rhythm. She opened her book once more, dipped her pen in ink, and wrote another name beneath the last. Daniel Hayes, Room 9, Eternal Rest. She closed the ledger with quiet reverence. Her eyes lifted toward the ceiling. The faint sound of a lullaby echoed from above, a calm, gentle melody that faded with the rain. Moments later, the front door creaked open again. A young couple entered, dripping from the storm, shivering and laughing softly. "Do you have a room?" the man asked. The woman behind the counter smiled the same slow smile. "Of course," she said. "The storm will not end tonight." The thunder rolled once more outside, distant yet alive. And far above, in the hallway of the Hotel of Sleep, Room 9 waited, warm and silent, its candle already lit, its bed made perfectly for the next traveler, who would come seeking rest, and never wake again. The young couple followed the flicker of the hallway lights. Their laughter faded as the sound of their footsteps grew louder, echoing longer than it should. The man, whose name was Ryan, carried both their bags, while his girlfriend, Leah, ran her fingers along the wallpaper. The surface felt damp, like the walls were sweating beneath her touch. "Strange place," Ryan murmured. Leah nodded, glancing at the portraits lining the corridor. Each one seemed to lean slightly forward, as though the painted faces were straining to listen. She swallowed hard. "I like it," she said, forcing a small smile. "It feels old but peaceful." They reached the top of the stairs. The candlelight from below barely reached this far, leaving the hallway soaked in shadow. Room 1, Room 3, Room 5, odd numbers only. Ryan frowned. "Where are the even rooms?" Leah shrugged. "Maybe the hall bends the other way." Then she saw it. At the end of the corridor, slightly ajar, the brass number glinting faintly in the light. Room 9. The door moved ever so slightly, as though breathing with the rhythm of the storm. "Maybe that's ours," Ryan said, approaching. Leah's hand shot out. "Wait," she whispered. He looked back. Her face had gone pale. "What's wrong?" I thought I saw someone inside. Ryan laughed softly. It's probably our reflection. He turned the knob before she could stop him. The door opened smoothly without resistance. The smell of lavender drifted out, mingled with the faint scent of damp wood and rain. Inside, the candle was already burning. Its flame leaned toward them as if welcoming them in. Leah hesitated on the threshold. I thought she said the room was being prepared. Ryan stepped in anyway. Well, looks ready to me. The room was simple but beautiful. Clean sheets, a heavy wooden wardrobe, a single mirror beside the bed. The window was cracked open, just enough for the rain's whisper to slip through. Leah set her coat down. Her reflection in the mirror caught her eye. For a moment, she thought it blinked a fraction too late. Her stomach tightened. She turned away quickly. Ryan collapsed onto the bed with a satisfied sigh. This is perfect. Storm outside, warm inside. Just what I needed. He closed his eyes. Leah sat beside him, but kept glancing toward the window. Something about the rain sounded off. It was not falling in rhythm. It sounded more like footsteps pacing the roof. Do you hear that? She asked softly. Ryan hummed. Just rain. No, listen, she whispered again. It's too heavy. Too slow. Thunder rumbled faintly, but underneath it came another sound. A low groan, like wood shifting under weight. Leah stood, moving closer to the window. The reflection of lightning flashed across the glass, and in it, she saw something standing just behind her. A pale woman in white, eyes empty, hair wet and hanging over her face. Leah spun around, heart pounding. The space behind her was empty. Only Ryan on the bed, half asleep, the candle flickering beside him. Ryan, she whispered, voice trembling. He opened one eye. What is it? She pointed toward the corner. There was someone there. He sat up, his expression softening. Hey, you're just tired. Come on, the storm's getting to you. He pulled her close. His warmth steadied her for a moment, but the unease did not fade. The candlelight dimmed again, though there was no draft. The air grew heavier. The rain's rhythm stopped entirely. Silence filled the room, thick and waiting. Leah's breath caught. Ryan! He looked up, puzzled. What? Before she could answer, the mirror cracked. Not shattered, but split down the middle, like a wound slowly opening. From the split, water began to leak. Thick, dark water that pooled at their feet. Ryan jumped up, startled. What the hell? The candle blew out. Lightning flashed through the window, and for a single second, they saw her. The woman in white, standing at the foot of the bed, her face pale as bone. She whispered softly, You came back too soon. Leah screamed. Ryan lunged for the door, but when he grasped the handle, it was gone, smooth wood beneath his hand. The wall seemed to shift, breathing in and out. The floorboards creaked like ribs beneath pressure. Who are you? Leah cried out. The woman's head tilted, hair sliding wetly across her shoulders. You do not remember? Her voice was gentle, almost kind, but hollow. Ryan backed away, dragging Leah with him. This is some trick, he said. But his voice shook. Some kind of illusion. The woman smiled faintly. No tricks, just the dream of rain. It never ends for those who promise to stay. Her form flickered like reflection on water. Her hands dripped endlessly, though the floor below her never grew wetter. Leah pressed herself against the wall. What do you want? She whispered. The woman stepped closer. To rest, she said. But you wake us each time you enter. Lightning struck again, and in its white glow, Leah saw other shapes. Figures standing behind the woman. Faded outlines of people, all pale, their eyes shut. One of them was Daniel. Another was Emma. Both stood silently, heads bowed, hands folded. Ryan froze. What is this place? The woman's lips parted slowly. The Hotel of Sleep, she said, where the restless come to remember that they have already gone. The room trembled violently as thunder cracked. The mirror shattered completely now, shards falling but never hitting the ground. They hovered, spinning slowly in the air. In each shard, Leah saw a different image. Emma lying still, Daniel fading into mist. The old woman downstairs, writing names. Ryan, she gasped, we need to go. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the wall where the door used to be. He slammed his shoulder against it. Nothing. The wood was solid, endless. Behind them, the candle burst into flame again. Its fire burned cold blue. The woman's shadow stretched across the room, growing taller, darker. "You were not called here," she said. "Yet you found your way through the rain. That means something followed you." Ryan turned sharply. "What followed us?" The woman raised her hand and pointed at him. "You did." The room went silent. Leah looked at Ryan in confusion. His reflection in the shards of the mirror did not move as he did. It stood still, eyes open, face pale. Then it smiled, a slow, unnatural grin. "Ryan," Leah whispered. He turned toward her, and his face was wrong. Just slightly. His eyes were darker. His skin seemed to ripple faintly beneath the candlelight. She stepped back, shaking. "What's happening to you?" He blinked, but his expression twisted with pain. I do not know," he said through clenched teeth. The woman's voice drifted again, calm and final. The storm found its reflection. Leah screamed as Ryan dropped to his knees. The water pooled around him, swirling like ink. His reflection in the shards stepped forward and began to merge with him. He gasped once, then went still. The candle flickered out. The blue light faded. Only Leah remained, trembling in the dark. The woman turned her gaze toward her. "Sleep," she said softly. But Leah backed away, shaking her head, tears streaking her cheeks. "I am not staying," she whispered. "I am not part of this." The woman's eyes softened. "You already are." And when lightning filled the room again, Leah saw her reflection standing beside the woman. Already pale, already fading. The thunder roared once more outside. Downstairs, the old woman opened her ledger. She dipped her pen in ink and wrote 2 new names beneath the others. Ryan Carter, Room 9, Eternal Rest. Leah Adams, Room 9, Eternal Rest. Then she blew out the candle beside her. The inn fell into darkness. Outside, the rain began again, steady, calm, eternal. And above, in the hallway, Room 9 waited. Its door slightly open, its sheets freshly folded, its candle ready to light, for whoever next seeks shelter from the storm, and steps unknowingly into the hotel of sleep. The storm outside grew louder. Rain lashed against the windows like sharp fingers scratching at the glass. Marcus turned his head toward the sound, his eyes straining in the dim light. The bedside lamp flickered again, its weak glow trembling across the patterned wallpaper. The air felt heavy, thick with moisture and something else, something he could not name. He pushed himself up in bed. The sheets clung to his skin, damp from sweat. The clock on the nightstand read 2:46 a.m. He did not remember falling asleep. He did not remember waking up either. A deep rumble of thunder shook the room. The picture frame above the dresser tilted slightly. He stared at it, watching as it swayed back and forth before settling again. The photograph inside showed a couple standing in front of the same hotel, smiling under a clear sky. He had not noticed it before. Marcus swung his legs over the edge of the bed. The carpet was soft but cold, as if the floor hid a breath of frost beneath it. He stood, his knees stiff, and took a slow step toward the window. Outside, the rain poured in silver sheets, washing the parking lot below. A single car sat there, a black sedan, its headlights faintly glowing though no engine ran. He blinked. The lights went out. The darkness that followed was thick, alive, almost aware. A flash of lightning split the sky, and in that brief moment, Marcus saw someone standing beside the car. A tall figure, still, facing upward toward his window. His breath caught in his throat. When the thunder rolled again, the figure was gone. He stepped back, heart pounding hard enough to shake his ribs. He tried to tell himself it was a trick of the light, a reflection, a dream inside a dream. But the chill crawling up his spine whispered otherwise. He turned toward the door. The hallway light beneath it flickered too, spilling a faint yellow glow onto the carpet. He reached for the doorknob. It was warm, unnaturally warm. He hesitated. His reflection in the window stared back, wide-eyed, pale, trembling. Another flash of lightning illuminated the room again. This time, his reflection was not alone. A woman stood behind him in the glass. Her face was gray, almost colorless. Her hair dripped with rain. Her eyes were open wide, blank, and gleaming with something like sorrow or rage. Marcus spun around. The room was empty. The wind howled through the cracks in the window frame. Rain seeped in through the edges, forming dark veins on the wallpaper. He backed away slowly, his mind struggling to understand what he had seen. Then, the knock came. 3 short knocks, soft but clear. At the door. He froze. The sound echoed through the room, blending with the steady hiss of rain. He swallowed hard. The doorknob turned slightly. Someone, or something, was on the other side. He wanted to call out, but his voice refused to leave his throat. The door creaked open an inch. A shadow moved across the crack of light. A whisper followed, low, wet, and trembling like breath drawn through water. "Marcus," it said. He stumbled back, his heel catching on the edge of the rug. He fell, striking the side of the bed. The door opened wider. The light from the hallway flickered violently, flashing between gold and black. In that rhythm, he saw the outline of a figure standing in the doorway. The same shape he had seen beside the car. Tall, still, dripping with rain. He pushed himself backward across the carpet. The air smelled of metal and old water. The figure stepped into the room, each step slow and deliberate. Its shoes left wet prints that steamed faintly on the carpet. The sound of thunder rolled again, shaking the ceiling. Marcus's breathing quickened. He looked around for something, anything, to defend himself. The bedside lamp. He grabbed it, yanking the cord from the wall. Its dim light flickered, then steadied. The figure stopped at the foot of the bed. Rainwater dripped from its sleeves and pooled on the floor. Then, the lightning flashed again. The figure was gone. The door stood open, swinging slightly in the wind. Marcus sat frozen, his hands trembling around the lamp. The room seemed to exhale. The thunder faded to a distant murmur. For a moment, silence settled again, deep and suffocating. He dared to stand. His knees wobbled. He moved toward the door slowly, his heart still hammering. When he reached the hallway, the air was colder. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. Down the corridor, he saw water trickling along the carpet, forming a thin stream that disappeared around the corner. It shimmered under the flickering lights like a trail left for him to follow. He hesitated, then took a step, then another. The rain outside continued its endless rhythm against the walls. Each door he passed was numbered, but the numbers did not make sense. 107, 203, 118. The sequence twisted, scrambled wrong. He stopped at a door halfway down. It was slightly open. A dim glow came from inside. He reached out and pushed it wider. Inside, he saw the same room he had just left. Same bed, same flickering lamp, same open window letting in the storm. He stepped inside slowly. The air was thick with the scent of wet linen and decay. The bed covers were torn. The clock read 2:46 a.m. again. Exactly the same. Marcus turned toward the window. In the reflection, the woman stood there once more. This time, she was smiling. A faint, trembling smile that looked wrong on her pale face. Then she raised her hand and pointed directly at him. Marcus froze. The window pane shuddered under a sudden gust of wind. A single drop of water slid down the glass, tracing her finger's direction until it reached the floor. Where it touched the carpet, the water began to spread. Dark, thick, red. He stumbled back, eyes wide. The lamp flickered violently. The storm outside roared louder, like the ocean breaking through the walls. Somewhere deep in the building, a door slammed shut. Then another. Then another. He tried to run for the hallway, but when he reached the door, it was gone. Only a wall stood where the doorway had been. The wallpaper peeled slightly, revealing damp plaster underneath. The smell of rot filled his lungs. Behind him, the sound of footsteps began again. Slow, measured, getting closer. Marcus turned slowly, his back pressed against the wall where the door had been. The footsteps grew louder, wet against the soaked carpet. He could hear the soft squelch with each step, like bare feet walking through mud. The air thickened, heavy and damp, pressing against his chest. The lamp in his hand flickered again. Its weak light swung across the room, revealing shadows that moved when they should not have. He lifted the lamp higher, his arm trembling. The reflection in the window was gone. The woman was no longer there. Then the whisper came again. Close this time, so close it brushed the edge of his ear. Sleep, it murmured. The voice was soft but full of weight, as if spoken from beneath deep water. Marcus spun around, swinging the lamp through the air. It struck nothing. The bulb shattered, plunging the room into near darkness. A faint blue light from the storm outside crawled across the floor, trembling like veins of lightning. He breathed hard. The sound of his heartbeat filled his ears. He could taste the air now, metallic, old, and bitter like rusted iron. He stumbled backward until his hand touched the edge of the bed. The sheets were wet. He pulled them back slowly. The smell hit him first. Rot, and something worse, sweet and sour, like spoiled fruit. Then he saw it, a shape beneath the sheets. A body, cold, still, dressed exactly like him. His mind froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The body's eyes were closed, its lips slightly parted as if caught in mid-breath. He stepped closer, drawn by a force he could not understand. His hand reached forward before he could stop it. The eyelids snapped open. Marcus screamed and stumbled backward, hitting the dresser. The mirror above it cracked with the impact, splitting his reflection into a dozen fractured versions of himself. Each reflection moved slightly out of sync, some lagging behind, others grinning when he did not. One of them whispered, "Stay." He turned, desperate, searching for another way out. The walls pulsed faintly, the wallpaper breathing in and out like lungs beneath skin. Water dripped from the ceiling, falling in perfect rhythm with his heartbeat. The sound was hypnotic, steady, endless. He pressed his hand against the nearest wall. It felt soft, warm, alive. He jerked his hand back. The entire room seemed to shift, the edges melting into shadow. The storm outside grew violent, thunder shaking the building so hard that dust fell from the ceiling. A window shattered somewhere far down the hallway. Marcus heard the faint echo of other voices, soft, layered, crying and laughing all at once. He moved toward the sound. He had to get out. He had to find the lobby, the exit, something. His feet slipped on the soaked carpet, but he pushed forward, his breath ragged. The air grew colder with every step. He reached for where the door had been before. Now it was there again. The knob gleamed faintly in the blue storm light. He grabbed it and twisted. It opened easily. The hallway beyond was empty. The lights hummed overhead, flickering in long intervals. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow, heavy drops, each one landing with a sound too loud for its size. He stepped out, careful, listening. Every door on both sides was slightly ajar. He began walking. The carpet squelched under his feet. From some of the rooms came faint sounds, breathing, whispering, and once the sound of a lullaby played backward. He kept moving, his eyes darting to each open door as he passed. Room 203, room 206, room 207. When he reached the corner, he saw her again. The woman, standing halfway down the next hallway. Her back was to him. Her hair dripped water onto the floor, forming a small, spreading puddle. He froze. She began to hum softly. The melody was strange, dissonant, like a music box winding down. Then she turned her head, slowly, without moving her body. Her face was pale and stretched, her mouth too wide. Marcus backed away. Her eyes followed him, though the rest of her body remained perfectly still. He stepped again, faster this time. She moved, not walking, sliding. The hallway lights flickered out one by one behind her as she came closer. He turned and ran. His shoes splashed through puddles, his breath tearing through the silence. Doors slammed shut as he passed them, the sound echoing like gunshots. Something brushed his shoulder, cold, wet, human. He did not look back. He reached a stairwell and nearly fell down the first few steps. The air here was colder still, heavy with the smell of mold and old wood. Lightning flashed through a small window above the landing, revealing a sign on the wall. Basement, laundry and maintenance. The power flickered, then went out completely. The only light now came from the lightning outside, stuttering through the stairwell window. He descended slowly, each step creaking under his weight. The further he went, the quieter the storm became. By the time he reached the bottom, he could barely hear the rain. The air was still and suffocating. He pushed open a heavy metal door. It led into a narrow corridor lined with pipes and flickering emergency lights. The hum of machinery echoed faintly in the distance. He followed it. The floor here was slick with condensation. His reflection wavered in the puddles beneath his feet. He turned a corner and froze again. Someone was standing at the far end of the hall. A man this time, wearing the same clothes as him. Same face, same eyes. Marcus's stomach twisted. The other him began walking forward, step for step, every movement mirrored perfectly, until they both stopped, just a few feet apart. The other Marcus smiled faintly. "You came back," he said. His voice was calm, warm even, but something beneath it felt hollow. Marcus shook his head. "I just want to leave," he whispered. "There is no leaving," the other said. "This is the hotel of sleep. You checked in the moment you closed your eyes." Marcus's breath quickened. He backed away, shaking his head again. The other Marcus stepped closer. "Go back upstairs," he said softly. "She is waiting for you." Then the lights went out. In the dark, Marcus heard the sound of water dripping. Closer. He turned, searching for the source. Something brushed against his leg. Something cold and soft. A whisper rose again, curling through the darkness. "Sleep now, Marcus. Sleep!" He screamed and stumbled backward, hitting the pipes behind him. A blast of steam hissed into the air. The entire basement filled with a low hum, like a heartbeat pulsing through the walls. Then, faintly, he heard music. A lullaby. The same one the woman had been humming in the hallway. It echoed through the pipes, sweet and slow, filling the corridor. He covered his ears, but the sound seeped through anyway. It was inside his head now. The floor beneath him rippled like water. He tried to move, but his legs felt heavy, sinking. He looked down and saw his shoes disappearing beneath the surface. The concrete had become liquid, cold, dark. He struggled, pulling hard, but it only dragged him faster. The reflection staring back from the black surface was not his own. It was her, the woman from the window, smiling still. Marcus gasped as the cold liquid pulled him down to his knees. It felt like ice and tar mixed together, gripping his skin and dragging him deeper with each frantic movement. He clawed at the slick wall beside him, his fingers slipping on wet metal. The sound of the lullaby grew louder, echoing all around him though no source could be seen. The voice of the woman hummed softly, almost tender, as if soothing a child to rest. He screamed again, his throat raw, but his voice sounded distant, swallowed by the thick air. He could see the reflection of her face in the black liquid below, her mouth opening wider and wider until it seemed to stretch beyond human shape. Then her hand rose from the surface, pale, dripping. Cold fingers brushed against his wrist. He tried to pull away, but her grip tightened with an unnatural strength. The skin beneath her hand burned with a freezing pain. "Stop!" he gasped. Her eyes met his, gleaming from the shifting dark. "There is no stop," she whispered. "Only rest." The pull increased. His legs vanished beneath the surface. The cold crawled up his body, numbing him from the inside out. He thrashed wildly, his hands slapping the wall, but the basement seemed alive now, breathing, bending, listening. The pipes above him rattled as if reacting to his panic. A door somewhere behind him slammed shut. Then silence. The lullaby ended mid-note. The air went still. Marcus froze, his heart pounding, the cold now up to his chest. Then he heard a new sound. A faint dripping. Not water this time. Thicker. He turned his head and saw a red trail creeping down the wall, slow, steady, glowing faintly in the dark. It traced strange symbols on the concrete, shapes that pulsed faintly like veins under skin. The symbols twisted, shifted, and rearranged themselves into words. "Sleep, guest 304. Marcus shook his head violently. "No," he muttered, voice trembling. "No, I am not." The words died on his tongue as the black water surged up to his neck. He gasped, taking in a mouthful of the cold liquid. It did not taste like water. It tasted like metal, dust, and something ancient. He choked and spat, struggling, when suddenly the wall behind him cracked open. A sharp line of white light cut through the darkness. It was blinding but warm. For a moment, hope flared in his chest. He reached toward it. The hand gripping his wrist loosened slightly. He pushed harder, fighting the pull beneath him. With a final burst of strength, he wrenched himself free and lunged for the light. His fingers brushed it, and the world flipped. He fell forward, landing hard on a dry surface. The cold was gone. The air felt still and warm again. Marcus opened his eyes slowly. He was lying in bed. The same hotel room. The storm outside had quieted to a gentle rain. The lamp on the nightstand glowed softly, steady this time. For a moment, everything looked peaceful. He sat up, shaking, breathing hard. The clock read 2:46 a.m. again. His clothes were dry. There was no sign of water on the floor. The door stood closed, perfectly normal. He whispered to himself, it was a dream. But even as he said it, he did not believe it. The ache in his wrist still burned from where the hand had gripped him. When he looked down, he saw faint red marks circling the skin. They looked like fingerprints. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed, testing the carpet with his feet. Dry. Soft. No sign of the flood that had nearly swallowed him. He rose, walked to the mirror above the dresser, and stared at his reflection. His face was pale, eyes sunken. He looked older somehow, worn. He touched his cheek, half expecting it to feel cold, but it did not. He exhaled shakily and turned toward the window. Outside, the parking lot was empty. No car. No figure. Only the sound of gentle rain tapping against the glass. He almost laughed in relief, until he noticed something. The window was open a crack. Rain should have blown in, but the sill was bone dry. And there, pressed faintly into the foggy glass, was a handprint. Small. Delicate. Wet from the inside. Marcus's breath hitched. He stumbled backward. The clock began to tick. He had never heard it tick before. It had always been silent. Tick. 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 The sound grew faster. The lamp flickered. He grabbed the cord to pull it from the socket, but there was no cord. The lamp was attached directly to the wall. He froze, staring. Then the television turned on by itself. Static. White noise hissed through the room. The image flickered, shapes forming in the blur, shadows moving, twisting. He stepped closer, drawn despite his fear. A figure appeared on the screen. It was him, standing in the same room, moving the same way he did. He lifted his hand. The reflection on the screen lifted too. But then it smiled. Marcus stepped back. The image on the screen did not. It stood still, smiling, as the static around it grew louder. Then its mouth began to move. No sound came out, but he could read the words on its lips. Sleep. The screen went black. The lamp exploded with a loud pop, plunging the room into darkness. Marcus fell to his knees, covering his head. Shards of glass rained across the floor. He could hear footsteps again. Slow. Wet. Coming from the bathroom. He turned his head toward the sound. The bathroom door creaked open. Inside, it was pitch black, but he could see something moving just beyond the threshold. A shape. Tall. Still. Dripping. He crawled backward, heart hammering against his ribs. His back hit the bed frame. The bathroom light flickered once, revealing a glimpse of what stood there. It was the woman. Her face pale, her eyes hollow. But this time, she was not alone. Behind her stood dozens of figures. Men. Women. Children. All dressed in the same faded gray robes, their heads tilted at strange angles. Their eyes glowed faintly, like candles seen through fog. Marcus's breath came in gasps. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy again. The woman stepped forward, her bare feet leaving dark prints on the carpet. The others followed, silent, their movements in perfect sync. She raised her hand, pointing at him. Guest 304, she said softly. It is time to rest. He shook his head violently. No, he shouted. I am awake. I am not part of this. But as he spoke, the rain outside grew louder again, too loud, pounding like drums. The sound filled the room, rising to a deafening roar. The walls began to shake. The woman stopped just inches from him. Her cold breath touched his face. She leaned in close, her voice a whisper buried inside the thunder. You never woke up, Marcus. The lights died. Darkness swallowed everything. And in that darkness, the lullaby began again, soft and slow, echoing from everywhere at once. A hand touched his cheek, gentle this time. Another rested on his shoulder. Then another. One by one, they pulled him down into the carpet, as if the floor itself were made of water again. The last thing he saw before vanishing into the dark was his own reflection on the broken TV screen. Smiling, Marcus opened his eyes to silence. A deep, endless silence that pressed against his ears until he could hear nothing else, not even the sound of his own breath. He was lying on something soft, something that felt like a bed but colder, smoother. He blinked. The world around him was dim and gray, lit by a faint, sourceless glow. The ceiling stretched far above, shifting like a clouded sky. He sat up slowly, his body stiff, his limbs heavy as if they belonged to someone else. The air smelled faintly of rain and dust. He looked around. Rows of beds stretched out in every direction. Hundreds, maybe thousands, each occupied by a still figure under a white sheet. His heart began to pound. He swung his legs off the bed and stood, his bare feet touching the smooth, cold floor. There were no walls, no doors, just rows of beds fading into the endless gray. A soft hum filled the air. It came from somewhere far away, growing and fading in rhythm, like breathing. He took a cautious step forward, then another. The silence seemed to thicken with every movement. He passed the first bed on his left. A figure lay beneath the sheet. He hesitated, then reached forward and pulled it back slightly. A man's face stared up at him. Pale, lifeless, yet familiar. Marcus stumbled backward. It was his own face. Eyes closed, mouth relaxed, as if peacefully asleep. He turned, looking around in panic, but every bed he passed held another version of himself. Old, young, scarred, smooth, different, yet the same. All sleeping. A faint whisper stirred the air. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Do not wake them," it said softly. Marcus spun around, searching for the voice. It echoed again, gentler this time. "They are dreaming still." He squinted into the gray haze. A shape began to form in the distance. It moved slowly, gliding rather than walking. As it came closer, he saw the pale outline of the woman. Her long hair floated as if underwater, her eyes still and bright. Marcus took a step back. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice trembling. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering his question. "You are where all guests come," she said. "After they rest." "I am not supposed to be here," he said quickly. "I just checked into the hotel. I fell asleep. I want to go home." She smiled faintly, her lips barely moving. "There is no home beyond sleep," she whispered. "Only return." She reached out a pale hand toward him. "Come back to your bed." Marcus shook his head and stumbled backward. "I am not staying here," he said. Her eyes darkened, and for the first time her expression shifted. Something close to sadness flickered across her face. "You all say that," she murmured. "Before you remember." The hum in the air grew louder. The sheets on the other beds began to move, rising and falling as if the bodies beneath were breathing again. Marcus turned to run, his bare feet slapping the cold floor. The air thickened around him like fog made of liquid. He ran harder, but the gray stretched endlessly, never changing. Behind him, the woman's voice followed, soft, patient, echoing across the void. Running is only dreaming faster. He stopped suddenly, panting. The air around him shimmered. The gray dissolved. He was back in the hotel hallway. The carpet squished beneath his feet. The lights buzzed overhead. For a moment, he almost cried with relief. But something was wrong. The doors were gone. Only endless walls stretched down both sides. He turned around, and the woman stood there again. This time, she looked human. No dripping hair. No ghostly eyes. She wore a dark gray uniform, like an old-fashioned maid. Her face was calm, kind even. She smiled faintly. "Good evening, Mr. Hale," she said. "Did you rest well?" He blinked. "What did you call me?" She looked puzzled. "Mr. Hale, room 304. You have been here for quite some time." Marcus took a step back. "No, my name is Marcus. Marcus Trent." She tilted her head slightly. Her eyes glimmered with something unreadable. "Not anymore." Before he could respond, the lights flickered again. The floor vibrated beneath his feet. A deep rumble moved through the walls, like thunder from below rather than above. He turned his head and saw the wallpaper bulging, swelling as if something were pressing against it from the other side. The woman, if she was still a woman, did not move. A tear split the wall open. Water burst through, flooding down the corridor. Cold, black water that gleamed faintly in the dim light. Marcus screamed and ran, but the current was too strong. It lifted him off his feet, dragging him backward toward the rising darkness. He hit something hard, a door that had not been there before. It swung open. He fell through and landed in another room. He pushed himself up, gasping. It was his room again. Room 304. The rain outside was louder than ever now, hammering the window in steady fury. Lightning flashed. In its brief glare, he saw movement in the mirror. Someone stood behind him. He turned sharply. No one. He faced the mirror again. The reflection smiled. His own face, but twisted, serene, too calm. The reflection lifted its hand. Marcus did not. The reflection's mouth opened, and a voice came from it, his own voice, but distant and hollow. You are still dreaming. He reached out and touched the glass. It was warm. The reflection's smile faded. Its eyes rolled upward, showing only white. Then it leaned forward and pressed its palm against his. The mirror rippled like water. He tried to pull away, but the reflection's hand gripped his. A powerful suction pulled him forward. The glass turned liquid, drawing him in. He screamed, but his voice vanished inside the surface. The last thing he saw before sinking completely was his own terrified face blending into the reflections. Darkness. Silence. Then rain again. He opened his eyes. He was lying in bed. The storm had calmed. The air was fresh and cold. He sat up slowly, blinking. Everything looked normal again. The lamp glowed softly. The clock read 7:12 a.m. For the first time, it showed a new time. He exhaled a shaky laugh. Morning, he whispered. He stood, stretched, and walked toward the window. Sunlight broke through the thinning clouds. The parking lot below glistened with rainwater. A car pulled up, a black sedan. A man stepped out, holding a small suitcase. Marcus frowned. The man looked familiar. He leaned closer to the window. The man looked up. Their eyes met. It was him. The man outside blinked, confused. Then he smiled faintly and began walking toward the hotel entrance. Marcus stepped back from the window, his chest tightening. He turned toward the door of his room. It opened on its own. The maid stood there again, her face calm and kind. Welcome back, Mr. Hale, she said softly. Your room is ready. Marcus looked down at his shaking hands. The red marks on his wrist had vanished. But when he looked up, the maid was gone. The door stood open, leading into another gray hallway. He stepped forward slowly. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The lights dimmed. And somewhere, far away, the lullaby began again. The wind howled through the cracks of the window frame. The candle flickered violently, spilling wax that ran like tears down its side. Emma's breath came in short, uneven bursts. The shadow at the foot of her bed was no longer standing. It was crawling, slowly, deliberately, as if savoring every inch between them. She pushed herself upward, hands trembling against the heavy quilt. Her voice barely escaped her lips. What are you? The thing stopped. Then, in the next flash of lightning, it smiled. Its face was pale and waterlogged. Skin stretched thin over hollow cheeks. Eyes like shattered glass, reflecting every bolt of lightning outside. You left me here, it whispered. You promised to return before the storm ended. Emma shook her head. Her throat tightened. I never knew this place, she said, the words trembling from her mouth. But her voice faltered as a memory scraped at the back of her mind. A dream she had once of this room, of the rain, of someone calling her name while she slept. The figure reached out a hand. Its fingers were long, white, and dripping cold water that pooled on the floor. It touched the edge of the blanket, and the fabric turned dark where it met that touch. Do you not remember? It said. The Hotel of Sleep keeps its guests. It never lets them go. Emma stumbled from the bed and ran for the door. The floorboards beneath her feet groaned like something alive. She turned the handle, but it refused to move. It was as cold as iron, freezing her skin. Behind her, the voice whispered again. Rest. You were meant to rest forever. She spun around. The room seemed to stretch, the walls bending inward, ceiling lowering. The portraits on the walls, the ones she had seen earlier, now stared directly at her. Their eyes were wet. Tears of paint rolled down their faces. Each face resembled hers a little more than before. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. She grabbed the mirror frame beside the bed and pulled it from the wall. It crashed to the floor, shattering into jagged silver pieces. In every shard, she saw not herself, but sleeping bodies. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all lying peacefully, as if in deep eternal rest. Their chests did not rise. Their faces were calm. Emma fell to her knees. The storm raged louder, thunder splitting the air like screams. The shadow moved closer again, crouching low. "You do not wake here," it whispered. "You dream, and you dream, until the world forgets your name." She clenched her fists. "No," she said. "I am not one of you." The candle went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Only the sound of her heartbeat remained. She groped blindly along the floor until her fingers brushed cold glass. One of the mirror shards. She lifted it and held it close to her face. Her reflection blinked back, but it smiled when she did not. Her breath caught. The reflection whispered, "You are already dreaming." Emma screamed, throwing the shard across the room. It shattered again, the sound like a cry from something deep within the walls. The rain hammered harder, and water began seeping under the door. It spread across the floor, icy against her skin. It smelled not of rain, but of soil and decay. She backed against the wall. The figure rose again, towering now, its form almost reaching the ceiling. The candle flame reignited by itself, revealing dozens of faint outlines around the room. Figures standing in silence, some old, some young, all pale, all dripping with water. They surrounded her, their mouths open together, and from them came a sound, not a scream, not a word, but a sigh that filled the air like wind through a graveyard. Emma's knees buckled. Her body felt heavier with each breath. Her eyelids fought to close. The warmth of sleep crawled up her spine, sweet and dangerous. "Sleep," the old woman's voice said softly from somewhere beyond the figures. "Sleep, child. The storm will keep you safe." Emma shook her head weakly. "No," she whispered. Her feet slipped on the wet floor as she reached for the door again. Her hand met the handle, and this time it turned. The door swung open with a rush of wind and rain. Cold air blasted into the room. She stumbled into the hallway, but the corridor was not as it had been. It stretched endlessly, each flickering candle showing the next door marked room 9. Every door, every wall, every corridor the same. She ran. Her footsteps splashed through shallow pools. The sound of her breathing echoed back at her, but louder, like something else was running beside her. When she looked to the side, she saw her reflection running in the windows, but the reflection was smiling again. She reached a staircase. It led downward into darkness. Thunder boomed overhead as she descended. The air grew thicker, colder. When her foot reached the last step, she saw another desk, a wooden counter, candles flickering. The same old woman waited there. The same brass key on the counter. Emma's mouth went dry. "I already checked in," she said. The woman tilted her head slowly, eyes dim and endless. "No, dear," she said softly. "You never checked out." Emma turned, desperate to run, but the door behind her had vanished. Only walls now. Walls covered in framed portraits. Each frame held her face, each one a little more lifeless than the last. The woman extended the brass key toward her again. "Room 9, she said, her voice almost tender. "Sleep well." Emma took a step back, shaking her head, but her body felt drawn forward, as if invisible hands were pulling her. Her skin tingled, her mind fogged, the air filled with the faint scent of lavender and old rain. She heard whispers now, gentle, coaxing all around her. "You are tired. You belong here. Just one night more." Her knees gave way. The floor rose up to meet her. She saw the candlelight blur and fade, her body heavy, her thoughts melting into silence. The woman's footsteps approached, slow and steady. A blanket settled over Emma's shoulders. "Rest," the woman murmured. "The Hotel of Sleep thanks you for returning." The thunder faded, the rain softened to a drizzle, and the inn grew quiet once more. Morning came. Sunlight touched the windows. The lobby looked peaceful again. A new traveler stepped through the door, brushing off his wet coat. The old woman smiled. "Welcome," she said. "You must be tired. The storm will not end tonight. And behind her, in a framed portrait on the wall, Emma's face smiled faintly, eyes closed, as if finally at peace. End of story.